Tennessee.
Tennessee.
So we've camped in a few spots in Tennessee. I honestly thought we'd camped it more. We found some pretty good ones. We're going to kind of discuss where we've been. Let's tell you the places we've been, and we'll give you our top 5. Actually, I think our top 5 matched in this. Now, we've only been to 9 that I can remember, so they're not that memorable. I guess they weren't that great. But regardless, a lot of them in the plateau, one in the west or eastern part of the state.
But most are not far from kind of the Nashville, Middle Tennessee area, just because that's
what's closest to us, exactly. So where have we been? So the ones we've been to so far, and this is in no particular order. We've been to Anchor Dam. We've been to Bledsoe Creek, Creek Falls, Cage's Bend, Rock Island, Defeated Creek, Lilydale, Standing Stone, and Old Mill at Cummins Falls. All of them, I wouldn't not go back to any of them, probably. Some I liked a little more than others, and honestly, the area around them I think is probably the determining factor of what we'll go back to some of them. So we kind of defer on a few here. Our number 1s are the same, but our 2, 3, and 4 are, well, actually your 2 is my 4. So
we have the same campgrounds.
We have the same 5, but they're just in a little different. They're in a little different order.
Well, it's because of the criteria you pick.
Yeah, so I should tell everybody. I tried to make this subjective rather than, kind of a opinion. I've looked at it and I've kind of given, I set it up as a 1 through 5, and she decided to do it as a 1 through 3, so it totally blew that out of the water.
Gotta keep you on your toes.
So I've got the cleanliness of the campground, the upkeep. The cleanliness, of course. You go into the bathhouses. Is there any trash? Is there anything around? And almost all these campgrounds are spotless. Every now and then you'll see one that's not quite perfect. Then the campground upkeep. When you go into some, you can kind of tell they've kept it clean, but they haven't really ever upgraded it. They've used wood or they've used something else, and it's just kind of rotten. Maybe they haven't mowed the way they should. It's grown up in the sites, things like that. The amenities. So what kind of things are there? This is hit or miss for me. I really don't care about the amenities, but it is something that people think about. So it is something I put in there, trying to be subjective again. Just takes the opinion out of it a little bit. Another one I put in was the green space. Is there a large area? Is there somewhere that people can gather and kind of have outdoor fun? Throw a frisbee, play volleyball, whatever. Is there these types of spaces? Kind of goes with amenities a little bit, I guess, but for the most part, just area. Besides camping sites. Trees. Do we have mature trees on it? Is it barren? Is it a parking lot? I mean, are the trees too thick? So, I look at it like if the trees are perfect, there's a perfect amount, you get good shade, that would be a 5. If they're a little too thick, a 4. If they're a little too thin, a 4. A 3 would be, there's part of it's tree, blah, blah, blah. Another criteria is the hiking. The trails. That's a big deal for me. When we're camp, I like to go and hit some trails on it. Some of the campgrounds are perfect for that. And some of them that don't exist. So remember, guys, if you're one that doesn't hike, you don't do a lot of these things, and you just go to the campground, your list will be totally different, and that's fine. And I also like to visit the different areas. So one of the things is area business. One of the biggest ones is probably going to be breweries for me, which is why I also put, the beer, what are the beer options in the area? And I really like to see, what beer options, what breweries we have. Some of these we went to have been just great for that. Tennessee especially, Kentucky not so much, unfortunately. Another thing, is there water? I kind of set this up as a place to say, okay, there's no water, that's a 1. There's water but no access to it is a 2. There's water and you could easily get in it, that'd be like a 3. So Defeated Creek would definitely be a 3 on water, whereas something like what do we have here? Anchor Down's a perfect example.
Well, Lilydale is one of those that they've
got a beach. They're great access. I don't know that any of these. Standing Stone would probably
There's a beach at Lilydale?
Yes, absolutely. Great beach. An excellent beach at Lilydale.
Then what is the campground we went to that's in that area that we had no access to?
That was a state park, and that was in Kentucky.
Okay.
That was Dale Hollow State Park.
Dale Hollow State Park. Okay.
Yeah, different campground. Now Lilydale has a really nice beach. Again, water, I would say water access, perfect would be like Defeated Creek. You just kind of walk in anywhere. You can swim anywhere along the shore. They do have a little beach area, but anywhere along that shore you can walk in. Standing Stone, there's no water at the campground. There is a creek that flows out of the lake by the dam. You can go down there if you wanted to, but otherwise there's no real water access there. Let's see, and then price is another big one. Most of these are all COE, so I think all of these are about the same price.
Or they're state parks.
State parks.
State parks and COEs are about. There
is one private place here that was extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And it shows with that. I think everything was a 5. Old Mill was maybe a 3, and then Anchor Down was a 1 because it was extremely expensive. Our top 5, starting from number 5, Defeated Creek.
These are our Tennessee parks.
This is our Tennessee parks top 5. Our number 5 is Defeated Creek. Now, Defeated Creek is probably, I won't say probably, it is the nicest campground of the top 5, period. The only thing that would keep it from being in the top 5 is the things you do around it. It's, it is a awesome campground that's kind of on an island by itself. It's got a really cool restaurant, not store. It's got a small marina with a restaurant and kind of bar restaurant. Good food, really good food. You don't expect a place with no competition to have good food, but this one does. So it's worth checking out. The only other thing, the trails in the area, there's a bunch of bike trails, but nothing really to walk. There's a lookout on top of the hill if you want to drive up. It's pretty cool to go check that one out. The green space, there's tons of green space between a lot of the campground, or a lot of the campers, and the lake itself. It's on Cordell Hall? Mm-hmm. Cordell Hall, it's just down from the dam. The only downsides, I would say, is where the campground is, it tends to get a lot of debris. It tends to get a lot of driftwood builds up in some of the campsites, depending on which ones you are. Honestly, the best campsites physically to the lake get a lot of debris. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad. There's some really great sites there on the point that you just kind of walk out and you're in the water, and it's really shallow for a little while. It's an easy one to, if you want to maybe take a rope or something and tie to a float and just kind of sit out there and have a drink, something like that. That would be, it's perfect for that.
Tether yourself to the lake.
Tether yourself so you don't float off, and you can just kind of lay there and be a whatever you want to be. Have your wine and beer and enjoy.
One other thing about Defeated Creek, and you have to pay attention to what it has going on, because if you're there on a weekend where they're doing it, they have this stage and they'll do karaoke, and then they've had DJs playing up after the karaoke. And so on those event nights, it's a lot of fun, but they don't happen all the time. So kind of your bigger holiday weekends, when they're super busy, things like that, they'll have it. But if you happen to be there when they're doing them, go down to where it's at. It's close to where the marina and the restaurant and stuff are. But it is a lot of fun.
There's some cabins up by the marina. There's a parking lot, and the stage is set up right there.
Yeah, so though...
We were lucky enough the first time we went, there was something going on. Yeah. They were doing karaoke that night. A girl got up with a kid on her hip. I'm 2 years old, maybe, the kid was. And she sung Janis Joplin, Another Piece of My Heart, and I'm going to tell you, spot on, perfect. And then there were some, some not so great singers, and there were some little kids singing. It was just a free for all, a truly good time. And if you were one of them that you're at the campground, you don't want to be bothered by noise, it's way away from it. You would have never even heard it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have a little fun, go up there to the marina. Awesome time.
Yeah,
awesome.
Good.
Can't really say enough good things about Defeated. Don't know how it actually ended up number 5. I kind of expected it to be higher, and it ended up number 5 on both of our lists.
And I have no idea how. It must be the criteria you selected. It's Craig's list. His number 4 is Rock Island State Park. Rock Island, it has a lot. The falls area. It's really, really cool. One thing, if you like any kind of adult beverage, you can't miss Calf Killer Brewery.
Happy Trails was awesome too.
Happy Trails was good, but Calf Killer, just everything about it was fun. We really, really liked that brewery. It had, It had a food truck off to the side, had some outdoor games, a lot of places just to sit and hang out outside of it.
We sat and played Jenga, 2x4 Jenga for an hour, I guarantee. And we had a group of German travelers. I think they had rented Harleys. They were riding, they were watching us play, and the next thing you know, they had to jump in. They had never seen the game, it seemed like. They watched us play, and then the next thing you know, they're over there doing it themselves.
Yeah, they had a great
The whole situation was an awesome place.
Yeah, and there's just little things. If you drive down where the actual falls are, there's this really neat, like an old mill, just kind of stoned area in some different places. So Sparta and the whole Rock Island, that whole area is just a really neat place in Tennessee. And we were very pleasantly surprised with how cool it was at Rock Island.
Yeah, I would do Rock Island again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If nothing more than just to go to Calf Killer, it would be worth it to me. But I mean, the trails were cool too. I mean, the hiking trails.
Yeah.
There were some that, I mean, you could walk up and you could go to where the falls are, and the falls they're not coming over the top. They're coming through the walls, so you can actually see the water kind of seeping out, and it starts to get more and more as it goes down. So it's kind of an interesting fall. It's not your normal body of water and then falls are coming over the top, or a river it's just seeping out of the rock, and it becomes this giant fall by the time it gets to the bottom. So
yeah, it's really cool.
There's also the one where it's got a set of steps that go like really steep down. I didn't take them. I had my camera and everything else, and I was like, I'm not going to take my chances of falling down these steps with the water spraying everywhere that day. So
it had like the chain rope, didn't it, to go down?
Yep.
If you wanted to take the real sharp.
But it was pretty steep.
Yeah.
Number 3, Cage's Bend. Oh, what did you think of Cage? Cage's Bend is to me, it was much closer to a almost rural area, or not rural, urban area. There was quite a few houses not far from it. You're pretty close to becoming a Gallatin area. Something around in Gallatin. Lots of cool breweries not far from there. Hendersonville, Tailgate.
It's kind of like a campground, state park, like almost in town, but on the water, because there's a lot of lakes and rivers and that kind of stuff in that Nashville and east of that corridor. There's just a lot of waters, a lot of waterfalls. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in Tennessee. And in Cage's Bend, the campground itself, we had great sights when we were there because we were right on the water, and it's a very, very busy waterway. You could just sit there and watch, because we were watching boats and this and that, and then a barge came through, and I couldn't believe that it didn't look like it was the size of a body of water that could hold like a barge, but it did.
Yep.
And so definitely you can kind of watch everything going on. And
we rented the boat that wasn't where we rented the boat.
We didn't rent a boat at Cage's Bend, but there are some breweries that are, Tailgate's pretty close, and a couple others, so you can actually get out and about pretty easily.
Big Trouble was down there, but Big Trouble I think is closed. But there's some others down there, and I can't remember what they are. I've got them written down, but hundreds and hundreds of breweries. And
pay attention to the campsites too, because there's some that are right on the water, and then there's some that are off, but some of them are really unique. They've got a lot of like concrete pads, and then other upper or lower levels with the picnic areas and stuff that's on these slabs.
Almost everything we saw though was really level.
Yeah.
It was an easy park to get in and out of. So I mean, and the boat ramp was right next to the water. It's pretty cool because I did get to see like an old wood and Chris Craft cruising. There's a little bit of money in that area, so you get to see some of the cool stuff.
Yeah. And it had some really cool restaurants that were right there close by too. What was the place that we went to that was close to it?
We went to Half Batch Brewery.
No, it was.
That's not far from there, and it was a cool place. It's a big brewery.
But yeah, it's kind of tucked in town, if that makes sense, because there's just anything you want to do is right there by it. And at night you do hear some of the, because Nashville has an international airport, so you'll hear some of the noise from that. So it's a little bit louder. At night you don't really hear the crickets.
Yeah,
you'll hear some of the city noise
because
it's
a lot of the clean night sky.
Yeah.
You might expect.
But if you like to get out of the campground, it doesn't have a lot of stuff and amenities to really do in the campground itself, but there's just if you like to get out and about, there's a lot of stuff around it. So,
and for us, to me, a big thing is it's what's in the area. You know, we're not about sitting in the campground. The campgrounds are kind of what you do after the day to relax at night, or kind of sit around with friends, have a drink, or just enjoy yourself.
Play some games.
We're not the campgrounds have to be quiet. If I want quiet, I would stay home. But that's just me. You want to go?
All right. His number 2 is Bledsoe Creek.
Really similar to Cage's Bend to me. I mean, same area, probably a little smaller campground. The campground itself is a little more rural, I would say. A little further from town, but I don't know. I feel like Bledsoe just had a little better feel about it. More like a campground.
Yeah.
More like you're camping, less like a town. Cage's was really nice, but Bledsoe has kind of that we're in the woods feel.
Oh, definitely.
The sites aren't quite as level, definitely not. But when you're there, you know, a lot of the woods are still grown up around it. You got heavy trees. There's some space between the sites, so you know. There was a big concrete picnic table. We camped next to some friends. We could string lights up between the 2 campsites, but I mean, when it was a good 50 feet away from each other.
Had to go kind of through the woods to get through each other.
It was a really, really cool place. I like Bledsoe a lot.
And pay attention to the sites, because you know they were right next to us and they had a level site. Our site, the front of ours was basically on the ground, you know, to try to get it level. But we had a really cool area back behind it. So
I would say Bledsoe was also a little closer to Lebanon. So there was like Cedar City and Ten Lakes Brewery. Those 2 were down there. We stayed there when we went to Redneck Rumble last year. But definitely an awesome place. And our number 1, are you ready? Everybody ready? Number 1, Fall Creek Falls. Yes.
And I was surprised that it was our top 1.
Because the campground is probably the worst of any of them on this list. Maybe. I'm not sure. Standing Stone's probably not.
Well, it depends on what loop you're in.
Yeah.
Fall Creek Falls is a huge campground, so it has multiple loops. We were in A. I liked A. It had a lot of green space in the center of it, but we've been to a whole lot better campgrounds. But what makes Fall Creek Falls so cool is everything around it that's still part of the park.
Yeah. You feel like, all right, let's go hike. There's some great trails. I mean, you go down to the falls. You could hike the falls trail. You got, hey, we want to walk down the creek. There's creeks you can walk in. You can wade in. It's got one really cool area, like a swimming area, that they've dammed up part of the creek and just kind of put a wall around it. It builds up. They've got a diving rock that people are jumping off of, and it's just deep enough. It's nice, cool, spring-fed, dammed up area, kind of like a swimming pool with a huge green space around it, an awesome space.
And it has a pool too.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the pool.
Oh yeah.
There's a big swimming pool.
The whole grounds at Fall Creek. If you want to play golf, there's a big golf course there too. And I'm not a golfer, so I couldn't tell you that one. But
they got an ice cream place, a pizza place.
We went to the first time we went there. It was like, I think it was during COVID.
Probably.
And so the store was open, and
the pool wasn't.
The pool was not open. The ice cream place was not open, but the outfitter and the camp store were open. They're one of the biggest, best camp stores I've ever been to in a state park.
Because of the beer selection.
Well, no, it was everything. I mean, they had tons of everything. They had Daddy's Money, which is a Mayday brewery, and I learned it there. That was the first place I've ever had it, and it was probably one of my favorite beers I've ever had. I had to search that out multiple times after that. Great beer, one of my favorites ever. So yeah, I'm a little partial to that because just for that reason. But they had great beer. It's nice to be able to go into a place and they have more than your basic macro selection of garbage that I don't drink, stuff that I enjoy.
Well, and I mean, it had a bunch of different things to do, but it still had a lot of trees, a lot of, canopy from those.
You should drive through the park. I mean, the park was big enough. You drove through for a while, and there were places to pull off for the creek, multiple waterfalls.
Yeah. Now, from the campground, you don't really have water views and water access. It's not like if you go to a defeated creek where you're on like this huge body of water. But you have to leave the campground to find those. but it's within the state park. It's the falls, it's the creek beds, it's the dammed up area they talked about earlier. So if you're looking for, hey, I want to sit at my campsite and view this body of water, that's not your place. But there's just so many little cool things around it and within the park itself that you just don't see other places.
When we camp, we look at the total package. We don't look at just the campground. We look at everything that campground has to offer. You know, basically all of these. The Fall Creek Falls, Bledsoe Creek. Defeated Creek is the only Corps of Engineers campground in that group, isn't it? The rest of them, Cage's Bend is too, isn't it?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Fall Creek Falls is a state park.
Bledsoe Creek is a state park. Rock Island is a state park.
And Rock Island is. I think Cage's Bend and Defeated Creek are Corps of Engineers parks. I think.
Yeah, Tennessee's doing a lot of good things with their state parks.
Yes.
I know right now we've been working on planning out our 2025, and there's a few parks that we were thinking about going to, but we can't because they are closed this year because they're doing a lot of upgrades. They're putting a lot of money and a lot of investments into it. So they'll be open again next year. So it's good to see that they're actually investing and making their campgrounds and their parks nicer.
Yep. I think Norris Dam is rebuilding. I think, where was the other we were looking at? Obi River. And that might be a COE.
Something Bell, Montgomery Bell. That one was closed.
That one was closed. You're right.
And they were doing it. So I mean, there's several that they're completely redoing the sewer and the water and the electric. I mean, they're just really investing in their state parks in Tennessee. So
yeah, and if you ever camped in some places, the Corps of Engineers they're pretty consistent. Mm-hmm. In Kentucky, most of the time, if you're at a state park, you are not as nice as the Corps of Engineers. Mm-hmm. In Tennessee, it's quite the opposite. Mm-hmm. The state parks tend to be nicer than the Corps of Engineers parks. Yeah. So, and it'll be interesting. We'll see. Kentucky's talking about possibly putting a little money into some of their state parks. So, who knows? But guys, that's where we're at right now. That is our Tennessee parks. Fall Creek Falls was our number one. Now, I'll give you one last bonus, and our number 6, or my number 6 anyway, I don't think it even made her top. No, it wasn't even on the list. My number 6 was Anchor Down. Anchor Down is a resort. Yeah. Very different than what we normally camp at, and we made a reservation, I think, at least a year in advance.
2 to 3
and then COVID happened, and it pushed out a year, 2 years, 3 years almost, on and on and on. We finally went. In some ways, it met the expectations. In some ways, it was really kind of a letdown.
It's is it Dandridge,
Tennessee.
Tennessee. So it's not far from kind of the real tourist areas if you want to go down into
far out of Sevierville
and some of those. But it's its own resort area. It's very, very clean, very, very well maintained. The bathhouses are phenomenal.
Basically everything about the grounds is phenomenal. It really truly is. Now, the campsites are small. It's meant for, let's get people in here. It's a parking lot.
There are no trees, no shade at all.
And it's fairly new though, and they have planted some, so that will happen in years. But a lot of the sites have fire pits, like chimneys, and the guy that owns the place does a different pit. Every time he does one, he does something different. They're stone. They're extremely nice. The one we stayed at did not have a fire pit on it, but not a big deal for us. We're not fireplace people.
And the thing for Anchor Down is really the amenities. If you're one that likes to go stay at the campground, kids, you've got some kids that need to burn off some energy.
12 and unders it's a phenomenal place for them.
Yeah. And kind of old enough that you can let them loose too. There's kind of that sweet spot for what the amenities they have there, because they have a huge, they actually have some sand area for kind of a beach, and they have all of these like inflated and float areas where they can climb up and bounce on, and a big slide that they can slide all the way down into the lake. It has a separate pool. It has a separate game room. I mean, there's a lot of things. If you got those kids from like 6 to 12 that just like to run loose and run wild, they would have a ball. Unfortunately for us, we didn't find this area or really get camp until our kids were well past that age. But
it's a nice campground, but it's again, it was a parking lot, so it kind of ruined the feel of it. It different things for different people.
Yeah.
And for us, I much prefer to have Creek Falls, where we have nature to anchor down, where you had a very well built
resort.
And it was, and I definitely don't want to take anything away from the place because it was gorgeous.
And it's pricey. I mean, you pay for it. You know, it's
one night is what we would stay at some of these other places for 3 nights.
Yeah, easily.
Or more.
Easily. But, maybe in however many years, if and when we ever have grandkids, then they get to that age, that'll be someplace on our list. Cause,
by then they'll have maybe some trees.
Maybe they'll have some shade by then. So make sure if you go there, bring your own shade.
Yeah.
But other than that, if you've got a family and got some kids of the right age, you couldn't go wrong with that place, for sure.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Hope it helps out. Get down in the comments and tell us, we've only been to 9 places in Tennessee. We've got some plans for more this year, and you'll hear about them. But I'd really like to know everybody's opinion on where you've camped in Tennessee. Tell us about the places we need to go. Tell us about your secret spots. Hey, are there any good breweries around some of these places? Because I want to really hear about them. So give us kind of a heads up below, and as always, man, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, give us a like.